This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming tonight to the CPA Preservation Plan presentation. This is the annual meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee. My name is Scott Kavanaugh. I'm the chair of the committee and the mayor's appointee. First, I'd just like to have the other members of the committee introduce themselves.
Jay Ryan, Conservation Commission.
Kara Henninger, Parks and Rec.
Palm Beach City Council.
Dan Riss, City Council appointee.
Mary Church, Easthampton Housing.
John Brenner, Historic Commission.
Excellent. And tonight, typically we meet every month and we hear proposals tonight. Some of you, I can recognize some faces, have been to our meetings in the past. Tonight is a little different, really. It's about the sharing of ideas of both from us and from you about what we want to see in Easthampton and how the Community Preservation Act Committee can be part of that. And with that, I want to hand it off to Ava Gersel, who is the Community Preservation Act Committee Coordinator. Is that the official part of your title? Ava wears different hats and works super hard on behalf of the city and for this committee. And she's going to unveil the preservation plan for us.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. So I'm going to start off by clarifying that we have a Community Preservation Act plan that we're going to talk about tonight, but that plan is in draft form. We want your feedback. We've already done a lot of feedback gathering, but we'll have opportunities for questions tonight, opportunities for you, members of the public, to suggest a project for inclusion in the plan. And you can provide written feedback anytime in the next 2 weeks before we finalize that plan. So as you all made it here, so you maybe have an idea, but what is the CPA? The Community Preservation Act is a piece of state legislation that different municipalities across the Commonwealth have adopted, and it creates a fund. We'll talk a little more about where that fund comes from in a second, but it creates a fund that can fund 4 types of projects. It can fund open space preservation, open space conservation projects. It can fund historic preservation projects. It can fund recreation projects. And it can fund affordable housing. And so these 4 categories, while they may seem like they cover a real range of areas, of topics, open space, historic preservation, recreation, and affordable housing, they all contribute to the preservation of our community. And that's really what this act and this program is all about. The Community Preservation Act, all about preserving the essential parts of what makes Easthampton and communities across the Commonwealth special. Here in Easthampton, it's about $800,000 each year. That ranges a little bit, but that's approximately the amount that we have to appropriate to different projects that fit one of those 4 categories. So that $800,000 comes from 2 major sources. It comes from a 3% property tax surcharge that taxpayer dollars contribute. In the 24 years that the CPA has been adopted here in Easthampton, that has generated about $8.4 million from city taxpayers. So thank you to all of you who are taxpayers in the room. And that $8.4 million is matched with state funds, which has been over $5.2 million in state funds. We have a specific revenue source for CPA that comes directly from the Department of Revenue, from the Registry of Deeds. So the Registry of Deeds, when a mortgage is registered at the registry, a portion of that fee goes directly into an account that then is paid out to CPA communities. So that's a really special revenue source, because it means that the CPA, it means that the Senate and the House of Representatives, the State House, doesn't have to approve a budget for us each year. We just have a set revenue source, which is has really contributed to the strength of the CPA. So that those funds are also often used to leverage additional state and federal grants. We'll go through a couple specific projects and you'll see, but often the CPA portion of a project is a very small percentage of what the overall project cost is, but it is a very important percentage because it's the local percentage that can often leverage the state and federal grants that the city so deeply needs. So as I said, we adopted it in 2001. Currently, if you're wondering where our coffers are at right now, we have about 700,000 available for projects. And if you'd like to come to our next meeting in April, we'll be opening Q4, and you can get a deeper breakdown on where those funds are in the various categories. So what makes a project eligible for CPA funding? I know this chart is a little small, so you may have to squint at it, but I'll walk through it real quick. So as I said, 4 categories: open space, recreation, historic resources, community housing. Big picture, all CPA projects must serve a public purpose. So typically you can't use CPA dollars on a project that is for private benefit. It needs to serve a public purpose. The 5 verbs of the CPA, and not all of them apply to each category, as you can see with the green and the red, are acquire, create, preserve, support, and rehabilitate/restore. So acquiring means to obtain a property interest, typically a building, a piece of land, a conservation restriction. And you can acquire open space, recreation, historic resources, or affordable housing with CPA dollars. Create means to bring into being or cause to exist. You can create open space. You can create recreational land or recreational resources. You can create community housing, but you can't create a historic resource because it wouldn't be historic. You can preserve, which is to protect personal or real property from harm, injury, or destruction. So think like to prevent something from falling down is often preserve. It's protecting personal or real property from harm, injury, or destruction. Again, you can do that for all 4 categories. Supporting, which is providing grants, loans, rental assistance directly to individuals who are eligible. You can only do that for affordable housing. So that's the ones you can support individuals directly in the affordable housing category. And then rehabilitate and restore is a little more complex. Under recreation and historic resources, you can rehabilitate and restore across the board. For open space and community housing, only if those resources were acquired or created with CPA funds. So it has been 7 years since we last all gathered in this room to talk about our preservation plan. And the CPA has spent a lot of money in that amount of time. Since 2018 to 2025, they have spent about $7 billion in these 4 categories. So recreation has spent, we have spent 28% of the appropriations towards recreation. And that has consisted of many different projects. Recreation by number of projects has the highest category, right? There's been a lot of projects in the last 7 years in the recreation category. This committee has appropriated 26% of the last 7 years funding towards community housing, towards affordable housing, has appropriated 11% towards open space, and has appropriated 35%, nearly 2.6 million towards historic preservation. Historic preservation, as you can see, has the largest slice of the pie of the last 7 years, which dovetails really nicely into, we're now going to go through some of CPA's greatest hits of the last 24 years. And does anyone have a guess as to what this historic preservation slice of the pie greatest hit CPA project might be?
Old Town Hall.
Old Town Hall. Now I'm going to turn it over to the committee, who's going to introduce some of our greatest hits. That's you.
City space is dear to my heart. I've been involved in performing arts for a long time, since high school. And during my tenure on the city council, we pushed through CPA funding of $3 million, which helped to get their first and second phase going. When we provide that kind of funding, City Space also tries to do a match and they get funding from donations, and they've been successful with that in order to build what they're building now is a beautiful new accessible elevator. City Space just got a 3.5 million grant from the federal government, which is fantastic because CPA projects are about quality of life. And the quality of life that performing arts or arts in general provide to cities and towns is immeasurable. And I've always felt that if we could provide a strong performing arts center, we can really help our economy and give our residents the kind of quality of life that places like Northampton, Springfield have with all of their performing arts, et cetera. So City Space has always been dear to my heart, and if they finish it, people will come. And not if, when.
When.
Sorry, that was a bad term. When they finish. I was told to be brief.
That was great. Our next greatest hit is the Nashwanik Pond Boardwalk. So many of you in this room are probably familiar with this project. The boardwalk was dedicated in 2015. This was just under $250,000 of CPA dollars, but leveraged over $1 million of state funds towards this project. It was a real hodgepodge of a whole bunch of different grants to put this together, but to really bring access to the pond, a place for people to gather right in downtown, a project that has provided a measurable benefit to our community and really needed that local match of CPA dollars in order to make the $1 million of state funding happen.
When Dan spoke eloquently about how the CPA is really about quality of life, I thought that summed it up really well, and that I knew that I would be presenting the Manhattan Rail Trail, and I can't think of things that parallel the Manhattan Rail Trail as far as quality of life in Easthampton. I served on the Manhattan Rail Trail Committee for a number of years, and I would hear stories from Barbara LaVombard and others who had been on the committee long before I even lived in Easthampton 11 years ago, about how there was a lot of resistance to the Manhattan Rail Trail before it came in. People worried about what that would bring to their backyards and what that would bring to Easthampton. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that I can't even imagine Easthampton without the Manhattan Rail Trail. I love going out there on the winter and seeing all the footprints, because you can see how much is, in the winter when there's snow, you see how much is used before it's plowed. And even in the winter, it's just covered, right? Because there's so many people that use that trail every day for transportation, for recreation, for just going for an enjoyable walk. And so that, that's the type of, one example, another example of a quality of life project that the CPA has funded in Easthampton.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the 11 Ferry Street affordable housing. I think this is an interesting one. On the city council, there's been a real desire over the last few years to be more aggressive and addressing sort of the housing shortage and sort of the regional and statewide housing crisis that we're experiencing. And the 11 Ferry Street affordable housing project is an example of this. We ended up spending $500,000 supporting this project over 3 years. That was something we were able to do because it was going to be a lot in 1 year. So we ended up appropriating $200,000 1 year, $200,000 the next year, then $100,000 the year after that. But that's going to end up supporting 91 units of affordable housing. So that's going to, be housing that's accessible to a whole lot of people who probably realistically wouldn't have been able to find housing in Easthampton otherwise. And of course, $500,000 doesn't get you that much in terms of housing, but it's money that we were able to appropriate that helped, again, to unlock a lot of state and federal resources that helped make, and never mind a lot of private investment that helped to make this happen. And like a lot of these projects, what I think is amazing about this, just being on the city council and being on the finance committee, is that most of these are projects that there's just no way they would ever fit into the Easthampton municipal budget. Like the budget is really just supporting operations, keeping the lights on, keeping employees, paid. these sorts of things would never find their way in if it wasn't for having a dedicated revenue stream for these sorts of quality of life projects. So it's really cool.
So the pickleball courts, they were put in 2 phases. We started with 2, and 2 were put in 2025. It was an eligible project for CPA because it used land for recreation. It was aligned with the CPA goal of providing recreational opportunity to a wide range of youth and adults in Easthampton. Currently, there are over 700 users in the Easthampton Pickleball Group on the Team Reach app, showing its wide use. It is a friendly social game. It easily integrates new members. It's multi-generational. Participants, people can participate at varying skill levels. If you haven't tried it yet, stop by. The people who play pickleball in Easthampton are super friendly. They're happy to teach anyone who wants to give it a try. You don't even have to bring a racket or balls. They would definitely let you just come in and borrow theirs to see if you want to join their group.
All right, Muttersfield Accessible Trail. It's located between East Green Street and East Street. The land was purchased by Passamic Trust in 2012. And the trail consists of an 1,800-foot loop, about 2 acres of meadow. It's for passive outdoor recreation to people with all abilities. So it's a really great location with views of Mount Tom. There's an entrance off of East Street that has handicap parking. There's also an entrance off of East Green Street. It has accessible benches, a weather shelter, a picnic area, plants of native grasses and flowering plants and shrubs, and some raised butterfly gardens. So it's a really great location. And Marty knows more about it than I do.
I'll begin by emphasizing that all of the projects mentioned tonight, regardless of the category, share the key attribute that they must be beneficial to the public at large. It's a core tenet of the CPA's charge and charter. On the topic of the Lower Mill Pond renovations, I spent a lot of time there, and I've watched the site evolve over the decades, and it wasn't that long ago that the area was mostly overgrown bramble. Today, it's transformed into a major anchor for our downtown district. It serves as a vital attraction along the Manhattan Rail Trail. It's walkable, accessible, open to the public, and its beautiful views and accessible play structures add additional value not only to the users of the bike path, but also to the businesses and apartments that now occupy the historic mill buildings. Your CPA investment in this area helped pay for everything from clearing brush to building toilets. Those taxpayer dollars helped us create meaningful infrastructure that includes better access to the boat ramp, public park, accessible play area, additional access to the bike path, the creation of an entirely new venue and performance space, the clamshell. Your CPA dollars have helped foster all these significant local moments. The tradition of Grinch Night and other moments that bring us together. And as a longtime member of the CPA committee, I personally want to attest that the CPA always looks to maximize the benefit and access. So on that topic, one of the CPA funded projects, this one, I would recall that I used to go to the clamshell with my friend Joe Tringali, who some of you may know, spent his life working for Stavros Center for Independent Living, where you may have heard of his adventures on Beacon Hill. He passed recently, but I recall very fondly Joanne and I enjoying those moments, listening to music together side by side, because your CPA dollars help fund it. So on behalf of one of the many people who've created lots of cherished memories there, thank you.
Excellent. So now that we've gone through some of our project highlights from the last 24 years, we're going to look ahead to the future. So when we began this preservation plan, preparing process, we started in the fall, and the committee took a good hard look at some of their previous goals for CPA and for themselves as a committee in terms of how they choose to prioritize projects to fund, and taking kind of a 30,000-foot view of it all. So through that process, the CPA committee developed 8 goals, 2 in each category. And we'll go ahead and read those. And after we developed those goals this fall and then put together a public engagement survey to allow the broader community to weigh in on those 8 goals of the CPA. So the 8 goals of the CPA, as redeveloped this fiscal year, the first 2 relate to open space, protect and connect lands of natural resource, scenic, and ecosystem value. Next, steward lands of natural resource, scenic, and ecosystem value for their long-term ecological health. So the difference between those 2, right? The first one, we're talking about acquiring and connecting lands, putting conservation restrictions on lands. And the second one is really about stewardship. So building better ecological trails, invasive species management, things of that nature. The next 2 are our recreation goals. The first, enhance and improve existing recreational facilities and opportunities to meet the needs of residents in the 21st century. Then expand recreational facilities and opportunities to accommodate a variety of ages and abilities. So the enhance and improve, we're talking improving what we already have, right? Making it more accessible, making it better, making it, current, all of those. And then expand, we're talking new recreational facilities, ones we don't have yet in Easthampton. The next 4 goals of the CPA. First, support rental and home ownership opportunities for low and moderate income households, and expand affordable housing supply through adaptive reuse of existing buildings and previously developed vacant lots. The first one gets at supporting households individually, directly, and the second involves more working with affordable housing developers to make more affordable housing, so build more supply. Next, we have support the restoration, preservation, and rehabilitation of historic buildings and properties, and inventory existing historic resources in the city, apply for National Register of Historic Places designation where appropriate, and promote the public awareness of historic resources. So the first there, supporting what we know already is historic, and the second, finding the resources that we don't yet have identified and educating the public about those resources. So we took those 8 goals of the CPA and we put them into a survey. I imagine many of the people in this room have took the survey, so thank you. There was a digital survey, a Google form that was widely advertised on the city's Facebook page and the city's website. We received 138 responses digitally. And I was out with this board at Winterfest, a farmer's market, and an art walk, talking to members of the public and recording their survey responses using magnets in real time. And we received 81 responses that way. So all in all, 219 responses to our survey, where we asked folks to weigh in on those 8 goals that we just outlined. We asked the question 2 different ways. The first way we asked it was we asked with each goal, how high of a priority should the CPA committee consider the following goal in funding recommendations? And we gave folks 4 options, high priority to not a priority at all. Those were not mutually exclusive. People could select high priority for as many of those 8 goals as they wanted to. And then we asked folks to select their top 3 goals. So then we asked folks to actually buckle down, think hard. They maybe think they're all highest priority. We've had that frequently. Please tell us what your actual top 3 are. And we're pleased to report, we're going to go through the responses now, that the responses provided a compelling story that mirrored each other, which was really interesting to see. So first, percent of respondents who ranked this goal as a high priority. You'll see the bars are colored by the category that they fit in. We had three goals that rose to the top as the highest percentage of respondents who ranked the goal high priority. Protect and connect lands of natural resource, scenic, and ecosystem value. Expand affordable housing through the adaptive reuse of existing lots. And steward natural resource lands for their long-term ecological health. So those were the 3 that emerged as the top 3. The next 3 are the other affordable housing goals, supporting low and moderate income individuals directly, and the 2 recreation goals, with historic preservation coming in at the bottom of the high priority list.
Sorry there.
Likewise, on the other way we asked the question, right? percent of respondents that listed this goal as a top 3. So we asked folks to list their 1, 2, and 3 goals. We aggregated those responses and looked at overall of a top 3 goal. So we didn't pull out the number 1 goal, number 2 goal, number 3 goal. But the responses are, the bars here are essentially in the same order. They're very close. Expand affordable housing through adaptive reuse of existing buildings and vacant lots, protect and connect natural resource lands, and steward natural resource lands for their long-term ecological health. Again, emerge as the top 3 priorities of the broader community. So I think that was a really useful exercise and a really interesting information gathering for us as a committee to know, and for the community to know. And I think it was, I think it was really interesting. Yeah, I could hypothesize as to how some of those bars came to be, or why the community responded the way they did. But perhaps we'll sort of let the data rest. And yeah. So next, we're going to go through some project wish lists from community partners. Another part of this project of the community preservation plan was reaching out to almost every community group that we have funded in recent times or has expressed interest in funding from the Community Preservation Act to ask them, what projects do you have coming down the pipeline? What might you be interested in that you might request CPA funding for in the next 5 years? And we were very clear in that process that these lists were non-binding, but rather just an opportunity to do a little bit of brainstorming and allow the committee to know what might be coming down the pipeline. So we're going to go through the full list of projects that folks presented, that folks sent in. And if you're here, if you're a community partner whose project is on the list, we have 5 slides. So when yours is presented up on the screen, if you'd like to come up to the podium and give us a 1 to 2 minute introduction of anything on your list, we would love to hear from you. Okay. So first up, we have the Agricultural Commission, Conservation Commission, and Parks and Recreation. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Russell Brain from the Agriculture Commission. We were really happy to see Orchid Hill Farm come up on the list. I wanted to take the opportunity briefly to get everybody on the same page about it. So the money's not needed right now. Farm preservation goes pretty slowly until it doesn't. There's going to be a time when we're going to need to strike. And I want it to be on everyone's radar. Orchid Hill Farm is out on Glendale Road and Clark Lane out in the Park Hill district. Really important farm, highly targeted. The owner is working with APR and other conservation groups to find the best slot for that. If it is APR, typically the city here, Easthampton, would put in a not real large, but a meaningful minority share of the preservation money. And at that point, we'll be coming to the city council with that. Half of that farm is in Northampton, so we're also working with the Northampton Agriculture Commission to make sure they're sort of ready for it there. So anyway, thanks for putting it on there.
Yeah, conservation.
Yeah, you want to do it?
Sure. So for the Conservation Commission, our priorities were the Open Space Acquisition Fund, which is something that we discussed with the CPA is putting away a certain amount of money each year to have a fund. So if a project comes forward, we can accelerate the process to be able to purchase a piece of property or go forward with some aspect of property purchase. Borkowski Trail redesign, that's something that's been in the works for a while. We're in the process of working with Natural Heritage on redesigning the trails on the side of the mountain, which is a slow process. Signage and wayfinding for the areas that we do have already is important. And then the Echodale the Echodale area for restoration and trail creation. Now we had some designs done a few years ago for that project, but we never really got that off the ground. So that's something that's important to the Conservation Commission.
Can I just sit here?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yep.
Just a question about Echodale.
Yes.
So when we protected that 20 years ago, part of the deal was that there was supposed to have been a trail open to the public around the property.
Yeah.
And that didn't
correct.
work out because of terrain issues and conflict with the cattle, I think. And so can you just explain a little bit about how that's changed?
Well, I believe that there's still options for a trail system in that area. I don't think that it's, we had some designs put together that were, done by the school, Conway School Design. But I think that we could take a real look at that and come up with a real trail system in there.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
So we're going to talk about the Parks and Recreation priority projects and Director Mason's online as well. But the pool house renovation, the pool was redone and we've had 2 summer seasons with it, but the facilities of the pool house are in need of an upgrade. Definitely the bathrooms, changing area, so it can match the beautiful pool deck and shade structures as well, with thoughts of putting solar panels on the roof of a new pool house as well. The Stonehouse building renovation at Daly Field. Right now it's in process of getting hopefully a state historical designation. Wayfinding project, so signage around the mill buildings area and Millside Park area. Non-park playground improvements with a focus on ADA accessibility, and then trail improvements within Nonotuck Park.
All right, so our next slide, if you're part of Pascomic, Bees Committee, or Valley CDC, if you'd like to come up to the podium or unmute in a second, maybe Alexis, yeah, come on up.
Okay. Hey everybody, I'm Marty Klein. I've been on the board of Pascomic Conservation Trust for 25 plus years. You've seen me here before, I know. I've had this terrible cold for 2 weeks. I'm not contagious. However, so I'll try to get through this. One of the projects that we're bringing to you is 10 years ago, we created, as Jay had mentioned, the Muttersfield Accessible Trail, which is subtitled A Place in Nature for Everyone. And we copied a design that had been used by the feds for their accessible trail in Hadley. And basically it's an above ground trail that's supported by boards to hold the trail in place. Well, over the past 10 years, those boards are starting to rot out, and we need to rehab that and replace them with, we're looking at plastic lumber that will last a lot longer. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is at the East Street entrance. We had originally put in native plantings there, and a lot of those over the years haven't made it. We have a rain garden there that needs to be rehabbed as well. Then as you go down the ramp, there's a little brook that you cross over, and there's a culvert in that brook. Well, that culvert is pretty much shot. And so we need to take it out, and we're going to be replacing it, or we're going to be bridging it with an aluminum bridge that goes over that. I think it's 30 feet long. So that's our plan for that end. And the other aspect of that project, where that property is connected to the Brickyard Brick Conservation Area, which is one of our most heavily used properties. And we need to improve the signage there. And I think we're putting another bench in. And so the total project cost is about $78,000. And I think we're going to be putting a request in for, I believe, $49,000 for you. We are going to be working on our proposal over the weekend, and hopefully we'll have it done next week. There was the one more I'm going to talk about. Brain.
Just in case with the invasives.
I'm sorry.
the invasive crop.
Oh, yeah. So we had great news, which is that Diane and I applied for a grant to the U.S. Department of Agriculture 2 years ago, I think, to get help with invasive plant control at our properties. And we just learned a couple weeks ago, after many, many delays, government shutdowns, blah, 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 that the money has been released. And what that means is over the next 3 years, we'll be getting $100,000 each year for 2 properties, which will be Mutter's Field and also our Dwyer property, which is off of Pleasant Street. So we have a contractor, and we're not going to be asking for money for that from you guys. We'll be glad to know. But in terms of a great thing, that's something that we deserve a pat on the back for. If I do say so myself, that's a biggie. So thank you. And Diane has a couple words about other projects. Diane McLean is the president of the Pascoma Conservation Trust.
Thanks, Barney.
Hi, thank you. Diane McLean. We have a couple properties where that are in the wings, and we're hoping once we get a better handle on where they are, we'll be coming to you for a bit more. These properties always take a long time. This one that we're just solidifying had taken over 2 years to get, and it's a 30 acre property. But the really cool thing is it abuts Pomeroy Meadow, which abuts the Southampton property, and then that also abuts the 385 piece that Kestrel is doing. So we're trying to as hard as we can. So this other piece that we're working on is very close to that. So we're building the corridor. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Alexis, do you want to speak to Valley CDC?
Sure thing. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, I'm Alexis Breitnecker. I'm the Executive Director of Valley Community Development, and I want to thank CPA for continually supporting us. And the projects that we have proposed are a continuation of an existing mortgage subsidy program that we've run with CPA support. So Valley is able to provide first-time homebuyer counseling for folks that are low and moderate income, and CPA Committee has funded both the counseling work and $50,000 mortgage subsidies for homebuyers, for first-time homebuyers. And the program during the pandemic was a little hard to move because honestly, supply was a little bit low, but we've gone through the three subsidies that we were given in a much more rapid pace than we expected. And CPA just awarded us more funding for the subsidies, and it has been a successful program. So we wanted to get it in your pipeline for continuation if possible. The other two bullets here are new programs. So one is a revolving loan fund that mimics an existing revolving loan fund that Valley has funded by Northampton CPA, and it was funded by Northampton CPA almost a decade ago. And one of the sort of critical pieces of work that Valley does in moving affordable housing along is pre-development work, which is everything that comes before construction. And what we typically do is borrow money from the state, usually with a 7% interest rate. And given the cost of everything, every dollar that we borrow that has a repayable interest rate attached to it just inflates the overall cost of the development of affordable housing. So what we've been able to do with the Northampton Revolving Fund is Valley holds that money. It's zero interest. We can use it for pre-development expenses, and then we refund the loan pool when a project goes under construction, because we get a little bit of extra money, administrative funding. So we've recycled that loan pool in Northampton at least 5 times over. It's very critical for us, particularly now, given the cost. And because Valley wants to be able to do development in Easthampton, and we're still looking for sites that will work for us, this is a possibility to help move that along. There's no this has to happen next year, but since this is a conversation about future years, we thought we'd put it out there. And then the last piece is that there is a lack, to our knowledge, of housing rehab funding in Easthampton. So currently Valley is the contractor for a state-run loan pool that is a 50-year, $50,000 zero interest loan that funds modifications to people's home if they have someone who is disabled or elderly living in their home. What we're proposing is something similar in structure, but to allow low and mod income homeowners to do rehab work on their homes, not just modifications like ramps and bathrooms if somebody is disabled, but rehab work that might be too costly for a homeowner, but is necessary. So we're thinking things like roof repair, external work, maybe some like HVAC systems, something like that. So again, we don't know that anybody else is doing that work in Easthampton, and we know it's a really critical program for a lot of the low and mod homeowners that we work with, who just don't have the excess capital to be able to access those repairs.
Thank you, Alexis. And I'll speak to the 2 planning department priority projects that are on our list here. First, we have the Person Street construction grant, project proposal, which would be to match a Land, Water, and Conservation Fund grant that the planning department has applied for to construct the Parson Street Park, a little pocket park over in the new city neighborhood. And that's a joint project, of course, between the planning department and the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Parks and Recreation Department. And then the other one is the city clock construction. So the CPA committee has funded the design and feasibility study of the city clock that currently resides in the top of the Congregational Church steeple. So actually doing whatever construction work is needed to stabilize and fix the clock is also a priority project for the planning department. Is anyone here from the Bees committee before we move to the next slide? Excellent. All right, community garden, city space, skate park, dog park, or Manhan Rail Trail. Anyone want to come up to the podium and speak to those? Come on up. Sorry.
Hello, I'm Burns Maxey. I am a longtime volunteer for City Space in Easthampton, and for almost the 20 years that it has been in existence, City Space, I have volunteered for the organization on and off. In 2017, I became president of the organization, and I was tasked by one of our founders, Ed Check, to restore the 2nd floor of the building. Which I was like, yeah, no problem. We got that. So we started to look towards restoring the 2nd floor at that time. A number of things happened in between then and now. One is we started off with a really big bang with the CPA putting forth funding for this city-owned property. So the Old Town Hall, we have a long-term lease for the Old Town Hall with the city of Easthampton, a 40+ year lease. And we are stewards of the building to make sure that this historic property still exists. I just want to say, I think historically, historic buildings within Easthampton have gotten little love. If you look at Main Street itself, half of one side of the street is no longer historic properties there. Those buildings were removed at one time. And I can't really imagine the other side of Main Street not existing. So I want to say that that's really important to think about when we're thinking about historic properties. But something that's really special about what we're doing that CPA doesn't necessarily cover, which is we're restoring and rehabbing this space for current and future use, for recreational use, for performances, community, art, people gathering, coming together and using that space. Something else that happened in between then and now is our facade of the building started to crumble. The brownstone and the limestone started to dissipate. And so that's why you see the netting on the building. So we got a cost estimate on that, and it's about $1 million project back in 2019. So we are looking for funding to help with that restoration of that side of the masonry of the building. And that is also part of restoring the second floor. When we started restoring, we were looking at one project, and we launched in 2019 our campaign. The CPA came forward with the $3 million for the project, and that was going to be an overall $6.4 million project. And COVID hit. That really stopped a lot of progress with the campaign. So what we did is we split it up into 3 phases, and we restored we put in HVAC and electrical for our first phase, which was about a $500,000 project. The second phase was what we're in right now, which is a $4 million elevator and accessibility project. And the third phase is the second floor, which is this amazing space, 50-foot ceilings, stained glass windows. There is no other space like it in the region. Oh, well, except for Chicopee's City Hall, but they're using it for their City Hall. We're using it for something else. It's a beautiful space, and there's nothing like it. And if we don't take care of our spaces, of these places that we have, whether it's our outdoor recreational spaces, our historic preservation where people can live, it's holistically thinking about this third place where people can come to and exist. We're coming through this next phase for the second floor. We just learned about this $3.5 million from the federal government, and we're so thankful for this. It's about $6.5 million now for the third phase of the project. That's our understanding. We're getting a cost estimate. Our last cost estimate was about a couple of years ago with our architects, Kuhn Riddle. And they said likely every time we do another cost estimate, it's going to go up in price. The longer you wait, the more it's going to cost. So we are trying to get this done as soon as possible. So I just am asking of the CPA and of the community at large to stick with us on this. We're going to get there, and we're going to make sure that this is finished. We have historic tax credits with this project that are going to go right back into the building. Over $1 million have already been allocated when we complete this project so that we can ensure that City Space, the nonprofit, can manage this building without having to come back to the CPA over and over again. That is our goal, to really make sure that this building functions holistically, takes care of itself, has an endowment, and exists for our community long term. Yeah.
Hello, Joan Kurtz, President of Friends of Easthampton Dog Park. The goal of the dog park was to build and maintain an off-leash dog park, and we received permission from Donatuck Park in October to have it actually there. The goal, the CPA says they like to fund the acquisition, creation, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of land for recreational use, and that's what the dog park would do. Socialization and recreation for the dogs as well as their owners. The design will be in accordance with ADA requirements. The best part is we were going to ask for $175,000 in the CPA. Members of my board and I sat down with our design engineer, Bill Cannon, and we finagled and we refined it. We're only going to ask for $136,000. So thank you very much. And we will be presenting the whole project itself probably at the April meeting.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Bagg, resident 49 Taft Ave, speaking for the skate park. Want to thank the committee members for what you do. It's great that you're here. The format tonight was really great, and I like the pamphlet and kind of the summary of past projects was really great to hear. The skate park, I don't think we're really pushing to apply for this money anytime in the near future, but we wanted to have it on the list. The committee has been very generous to the skate park project. The group has been at it since 2019, and we're actually really close working with John Mason and others, Parks Commission, to potentially go out for construction in July. So it's like really successful. And you know, the project is really aimed at youth action sports and providing alternative areas for children and adults to gather, you know, in a non-organized sport way. So it really does benefit a wide range of people. You know, we were really successful with leveraging the CPA dollars, the $250,000 against the state grant. So we worked with John to get a park grant for $425,000, and our group has committed to raise $85,000 in donations. And our specific target is at least $60,000 by June. And you know, we're quietly talking about the fact that we're at about 40,000 of that 60,000 goal. So we're really totally optimistic. We just wanted to have this on the list. We're trying to have it designed so that the conduit for lighting is put in this first phase, and lighting might come later, but we're just trying to think ahead. And then the other project I just wanted to mention, you know, it came up, the Millside Playground is something that doesn't necessarily belong under the skate park, but it is something that we would wholeheartedly support in terms of bringing groups of people into Millside. That playground is actually designed for age 12 plus, and it's missing many of its original components, and it's really just not adequate for the park under current conditions. So we would just, you know, lobby to put that up on the list. It really should be an accessible playground for younger age groups. And then the other project that I just wanted to take the opportunity to make sure for the rail, it's kind of under the rail trail committee. The city had been awarded, I think it was $1.2 million for a sidewalk to connect from the rail trail to Mountain View. And so the Safe Routes to School funded most of that, but there was always a piece of land that would need to be acquired to actually make the connection, the Phillips Manufacturing Corner. And so early on, that had been something that the CPA might be able to fund. So as that project comes to fruition, it might come to CPA, and it's not really on the list. It's kind of under that increasing trail connections to the Manhattan Rail Trail, but I just wanted to alert the committee that that could come up. It's not really in the plan yet, so put a plug in. But thanks again for everything you guys do.
Thank you. Anyone from Community Garden? Great. Kestrel National Pond Steering Committee or renewal initiatives?
Hi, good evening. My name is Heather Tackle from Renewal Initiatives, here with my colleague Zach Salisbury, as well as on behalf of Farmer Veteran Coalition, our partner as a national nonprofit. Thank you for the opportunity to, I think, come together for the first time in front of the committee. But it's been a project a long time in the works, which is the Easthampton Town Farm and Lodging over on Oliver Street and in the Park Hill District, if you all know that area, 56-acre property that includes both town farm as well as about 20 unit of lodging created in 1890 and operated by the city. One of the longest running, largest, used to call it poor farm in the nation, still owned by a municipality. And for about a year plus, I've been working and putting together a vision for that property that really holds true and preserves the historic heritage of the nature of bringing people together with land to take care of underserved population. Hits on probably all 8 of the committee's goals in the FY 26 because the vision that we have there is a training center and a community hub, really bringing the community in, as well as training veterans and regenerative agriculture. And ecosystem was mentioned in several of the goals, and regenerative agriculture's main goal is to restore and preserve ecosystem as well. So in addition to preserving a historic property that's on the National Register, as well as preserving affordable housing that has been vacant since 2022 or so and has really been run down. It also provides those ecosystem benefits as well in terms of the transformation of the land and taking care of the land there on those 56 acres that we vision for the property and being able to bring together with the community and with the veterans training. So we look forward, we know just a short time tonight, but in further conversation and to dig more into the details. And it's about a $7 million property just or project just on the property side itself, but when you include the training and the agriculture side, it's multi-million-dollar more than that. So we're hoping and seeking for multi-years. This is just not, hopefully we'll start this year if we were to be awarded the project by the city's RFP. And but it would be a multi-year project that we would hopefully work together with the committee to keep this property in the city and working for the community and the public benefit here.
Hello, I'm Paul Davis for the National Running Pond Steering Committee. Again, as many others have spoken here, I'm very grateful for the past support that the committee has given us on different projects on National Running Pond. It wouldn't be the resources it is for the community that it is the great resource that it is today if it hadn't been for a lot of your support and efforts and those of the broader community as well. We listed one project as part of Appendix A. It was help to that we see coming up fairly near term, actually. This is for the viewing platform, which is near the cemetery downtown. As you, I'm sure, well aware, it's been closed off to public use for the last few years due to unsafe conditions. It's been undermined. One of the pillars is actually hanging in space. So it's not a very safe place to be right now. So it was very wisely taped off and not for public use. And it's at a position where either we need to repair it or take it down. So obviously we want to put it back into use. We have talked to the Conservation Commission and they've agreed to help us with the permitting on that. So that's coming forward in the next month or so. We have talked to a contractor to get preliminary bid estimates. So we kind of know what we're dealing with, but probably for less than 25,000 or so, we can put that back up and running and preserve it for generations or so to come. So that's on our near-term hit list, and we'll be bringing that to you probably a little bit later this year. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have School Committee, Easthampton Public Library, or I don't think we have anyone here from the mayor's office, but I think the mayor wins the award for the longest number of projects, the longest list of number of projects. Special award. All right. Excellent. Well, so now we're in to kind of a more, so that was an excellent list. Thank you all so much for coming to propose, to explain your projects that you had previously sent into the committee. It was great to hear the descriptions of them. Now we're into the open brainstorm period of our meeting. Chair, do you want to say a little more about this?
Yeah, just, as we mentioned before, often, we meet monthly and those are for projects that are, already proposed and then asking for funds at that time. And this is really our annual opportunity to have discussions, to answer any questions, to really just, hear any thoughts that the public have for the committee and for the committee's, potential dollars and just for the city, like, well, what that would fall under our purview, what might be out there. So if anybody would like to ask a question or a comment at this time on anything else, you're welcome to do that.
We'll also take questions about CPA or about the plan or anything of that nature as well.
Great. Yeah, I just had a question about when we apply, do we have to have accepted bids, or can we present a budget of expected expenses?
Yeah, you can absolutely present a budget of expected expenses. That's often what has happened with other projects in the past. And then often what we'll do is it'll go to bid, it'll come back, and then if it's under what you ask for, then those funds are. Yeah, anybody, and so go on up. If anybody who has questions, go for it. There's people that are online, and so that's why we want to, even though we in the room could probably hear you from your seat, we want to make sure it picks up on the microphone. That's why especially we're asking people that come on.
Paul Davis again from National Ag Pond Steering Committee, and I apologize the light bulb didn't go off quick enough to make it this project onto the list, but I kind of wanted to introduce it to the group just to let you know that it's on our horizon within the fairly near term. In 1990 was the first comprehensive study of Nashawanek Pond that was done by an outside consulting group. I was part of that group that did some of the work on that back in my consulting days. And then there was an update to that in 2003, which I also got to be part of as well. I wasn't a town resident at the time. Now I'm a town resident. I want to see that continue. And what the light bulb that came off, that went off for me was that we were blessed this year to get in our association friends of Nash Pond, actually, but 2 aquatic biologists came on the team with us. I'm also an aquatic biologist. We now have 3 volunteer aquatic biologists, and the time is right to update this pond management plan for the benefit of the town, take a comprehensive look at Nashawanek Pond, see what its strengths are, what its weaknesses are, what are the projects we really need to focus on in terms of maintaining this pond as a benefit for the future, horizons. So with that, we have a lot of volunteer work that can do, this will be a lot of free labor that's going to be engaged in this. However, there are costs that come with the free labor. Probably the biggest one will be for doing water quality assessment, a real good updated water quality assessment. What are the causes of pollution coming into Nash Pond from the 3 tributaries that feed Nash Pond? Are there sediment loading issues that we need to worry about? What is the future trajectory, environmental trajectory? And we think this is something we can accomplish focusing on perhaps on 2027 to get the work done and then have a report by the end of the year. And this will guide the future projects that we seek for funding and for, the real brute force work over probably the next 5 to 10 years or so. So anyways, just want to introduce that to the committee and let you know that that was coming down the pipe.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Eva, can you remind me how much we have for this CPA each year? How much
Yeah, it's about $800,000.
It's not a lot of money when we're talking about all these projects, right? And, as a person who lives here, and all of these projects are just so exciting to me, it makes me wonder how we can plan ahead and make sure that the CPA has the funding available for as many partial, of these projects available. And something that the CPA did previously for a bucket of, areas of CPA funding was for historic preservation, to put, aside, make sure that there was more funding there, not more funding, but that there was funding each year sort of allocated for historic preservation, thinking ahead of bigger asks. So I wonder if that's something that the CPA could consider thinking about as these projects come along, not getting into the situation of being like, we don't have as much in the coffers this year for this project. You might be already thinking this, but I just wanted to put a plug in for it as we're planning ahead.
Thank you, Burns. One thing that we should let you know is that as far as the distribution of the CPA funds, because of with the state law, the way it's allocated is that It needs to be at least 10% in each of the 3 buckets. Open space and recreation are considered one bucket together. So 10% open space recreation, 10% historic preservation, 10% affordable housing, and then the remaining 70% is unallocated. It needs to be in one of those 3 categories because it's part of the CPA, but it's not allocated to a specific category. So every year there is 10% that is dedicated right away to those categories and can never leave them. As far as beyond that, making sure we have the funding, that's been a big discussion that we've had on the committee. I mean, a lot of us have been on the committee for several years. We've been really blessed that we've had to say no to very few projects that we've, the amount of money that we've had has generally been larger than the amount of money that quality projects have been coming to us, have been asking for. And that's been a real blessing. Where we're at right now, and we hear, nobody has said anything here that is, not a really worthy project, right? And so, that we've talked about that a lot, that could get complicated, and that's going to lead to a lot of discussions. And that's part of the goal here, is to hear a lot of what might be coming up. Okay, that might be coming up a year, that might be coming up in 10 years, and to have that foresight and knowledge of what might be coming. And also to share, our thoughts on kind of the goals and that we're looking for in projects, so that when we have those discussions, it's guided by those. Yeah.
I just wanted to compliment all of you, because the CPA funds are often used to leverage grants and donations for yourselves. And you've done a very good job of that. Every time we get a project, it's usually a matching something that you're donating. Sometimes it's in-kind labor, but most of the time it's funds that you've found. Park and Rec found the Parks Grant to help us with one of their projects. City Space has tremendous donation capability to match the funds that we give. And I just feel that that's what you kind of have to do, but I think the CPA funds help you do that, because we can also, and we've done this in the past, we can write a letter saying, if you match these funds, we will give you this. And I think that's another way to go. So just thank you for looking out for yourselves, but also getting those grants, doing the research that you need to do, and donations, getting like the dog parks getting donations, skate parks getting donations. It's not just the CPA. So I'm optimistic that when you come to us, you're not asking for the whole project. You're asking for enough money to leverage those other funds. So thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? I didn't know if he was making a turn. One of the real, and just to sort of, speak to what Dan said, one of the real pleasures of being on the CPA is to be able to work with so many partners like you, to be able to be a part of making the hard work that you're all doing make these projects happen, both with the other, dollars that are coming in and all the time that you're spending. So thank you.
So we'll conclude where we started, noting that the final plan the draft plan is not yet finalized. It will include your feedback, projects proposed tonight, and any written feedback you'd like to submit. We had a few hard copies of the plan here. If you didn't get a hard copy, you can find it on the website. If you search Easthampton CPA Committee, you can find the draft annual preservation plan right at the top there. Feel free to email me if you have trouble finding it, or if you have any questions about a CPA application. My cards are over on the table. If you didn't get a chance to sign in, please sign in on the yellow clipboard, grab a brochure about our past project highlights. We meet every month, typically on the third Thursday at 6:30 in the first floor conference room, so one floor down. Feel free to reach out to me, as I said. We do have a project funding application deadline. So our fourth quarter FY26 application deadline is coming up in the first week of April. So again, visit the website if you'd like some more information about that, or if you're planning on applying, feel free to be in touch. And we so appreciate you coming out tonight. Feel free to send me any feedback on the preservation plan in the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
And lastly, just before you leave, I just want to thank Ava and thank Derek for all their hard work that went into making this plan possible. So thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
And come take a look at the map from CPA funded projects for the last 7 years.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.